Hi everyone! So I'm sure many of you are excited for two games, Paragon Overprime and Predecessor, two new MOBA games that's supposed to be remakes of Paragon, but each one takes a different direction. That being said, some people ask me, why, I'm choosing one over the other, or what actually will make one have a higher chance to succeed better than the other. And even just leave aside the one versus the other, let's just even just assume that there's just one. What this game needs to have in order to do well. As of right now, of course, there's a big fan base for Paragon fans that are waiting for a remake. And they are trying both games. They try even others. There actually some of them actually failed to impress. And like Fold, for example, which closed the servers. So the main ones right now are Predecessor and Paragon Overprime. And I play both, although I play Predecessor on April, keep this in mind, and things are of course subject to change quite rapidly. And I came with personally to try out the latest version of Predecessor. So what things are important for me, and you can share yours of course in the comment section below, what actually can make you choose one over the other. Because again, I think many will play only one, invest one, but some people might decide to just play both of them. Maybe one more casually, one to invest more in the competitive part of the game. So let me start. Now, one of the most important thing for me is the map design. Well, this is actually what makes a MOBA game, right? We have the three lanes, which you can strategize around them, the tower, inhibitors in this case. And the most important thing for me is to be able to play a game that is similar to the classic MOBA game. But again, the thing that I like about Paragon is it's actually played in third-person perspective. Now, back to the map, there are differences. That this is probably one of the things that you notice the most because again, it's all about how the map is designed and how it allows players to strategize around the map and how fun it will be actually watching it, maybe as an eSport, and of course playing it. So Overprime brings new features like, for example, like the shadow bushes. You can see them on the left and on the right here. Basically, when you get there, you kind of the bushes that move a bit, so you can actually see if somebody is moving and somebody's there. But if you're not, you're going to be just invisible and nobody can spot you there. It's actually curved around different areas on the map, so you can actually can see even somebody enters it unless you pay attention to it, and you can see the movement of the bushes. There's also teleportation near the O Prime. I don't know if they actually changed it, but O Prime was also able to attack the base as well. There's only one tier of one tier tower before the inhibitor compared to two in Paragon. But keep in mind, this can be balanced, so they can make, for example, the tower harder to eliminate or can deal more damage. There are ways to work around if you're using just single tower, but still, it doesn't really allow you, once you actually destroy it, to actually have kind of a backup place to actually retreat. This is why, by the way, my first complaint was that we were brawling too fast when just one lane is actually destroyed, because people just grouping up together and just turn into kind of an Overwatch match. And this is thing that can be balanced, but something that I didn't quite like playing Overprime. Anyway, I won't dive deep into it, but again, there are significant changes between the two that might lead to some players preferring the more innovative approach to what looks like a new MOBA game that uses kind of Paragon assets compared to predecessor that stay more loyal to the original game. Yeah, so that's it. Now, the other thing is balancing. Now, keep in mind, balancing will continue to happen even after the game is released throughout. It happens in competitive games all the time. But players that might feel like that, in terms of balancing, the game just feel completely off in some ways, or, they just don't get to really enjoy and, waiting for another balancing sequence to happen, might actually deter some players to playing one over the other. And again, this is something that you feel immediately when you jump into a game, especially a competitive game. So if you feel that, something is just off, this can really impair the gameplay experience. That being said, the best time, of course, is when the game is released to gather data, analytics, and analyze things, get user feedback, and make changes. So bear with the developers when they're actually doing so. Don't be like Swash. You can share feedback, of course, but give them time to balance the games. Keep in mind, playing those two games, of course, there are issues that I found, and of course, I share my feedback. But again, give it time. This is important, by the way, and can ruin the experience for some players, especially if you're focusing on certain heroes that you enjoy playing. But again, this is the natural, stage of competitive games, and just expect things to change over time. Now, of course, when it comes to competitive game, especially fast-paced one, you want to make sure that servers are deployed around the globe. So players who are playing, for example, on the West Coast will be able to play against other players on the West Coast, rather than having, for example, a player playing on the East Coast playing against another player on the West Coast. So there is, of course, latency differences between the two. Now, regarding game engine, again, from what I've heard, predecessors using Unreal Engine 5, whether Paragon Overprime using Unreal Engine 4. Now, the bottom line, this can lead to better visuals and even more optimized gameplay experience, especially on low-end machines. The game can still look good, by the way, and this is because of global illumination, global lighting system, visual shadow maps, the world partition tools, and of course the nanites, which allows Unreal Engine to increase the detail in both the 3D models and the texture the closer the user are. And so nothing wrong about the game looking even more atmospheric and beautiful, and of course it makes it more future-proof, so more unique features coming to Unreal Engine 5 will be available for developers straight away. So again, keep in mind when it comes to skins, and all this stuff, you want things to look really beautiful, both in game and of course in the introduction screen. So this of course allows developers to really kind of make the most out of Unreal Engine 5 to really make those skins really shine and looks amazing. So again, if they decide to monetize on them, really bring them to life and make them look great both in game and in the skin selection screen. Now, the other thing is very, very important, which is optimization. Of course, this is supposed to be high priority for developers because they want the game to be available as many players as possible rather than limit themselves because the game will just doesn't run on specific hardware. So as you can see, when it comes to minimum and recommended system requirements, they are the same, but keep in mind the fact that the predecessor is running on Unreal Engine 5, make it more future-proof, and they can, of course, add better optimizations, but still maintaining really beautiful visuals for those running on low-end machines. I mean, I ran on my machine 3070 Ti, of course it's overkill for this game, but it actually ran pretty well. So I did notice, by the way, the time that I played Overprime in the past with a different computer that ran on 1060 Ti, that laptop, it's actually the frame rate weren't that good, but again, things might have changed by then. Alright, the next one is a really big thing. I think this is probably one of the things that people are worried about the most, not addressing Paragon's original issues. Now, of course, some might see this an issue, others don't, but definitely there were issues with Paragon. For example, when Epic gets moved from the legacy to the monolith map, some people just didn't like the map. It was too small for players. It's a smaller map. They ditched the travel option that leads to another rework of some heroes and also change the dynamics of the game. So this is why some players actually see Overprime having those features and a larger map, something this is a big advantage compared to Predecessor, which stay more loyal to based on the monolith map. Again, these are two camps. Some prefer the legacy map. Some might prefer the monolith map. And again, but it's all about also balancing it correctly. This is why I mentioned before, balancing is very, very important. Also, there was an issue with addressing AFK players. It was a big issue. People just stopped playing. Eventually, Epic addressed this issue and start banning players. You can actually get feedback if something had happened. But I think after version 27 update, when they also disabled inhibitors regeneration, people didn't like it. And in version 28, when they introduced the on-prime dunk, which is actually available in Overprime, I think they haven't disabled it as well. Some people see it as a really, really fun thing in the game. Actually, it can be really fun, especially when you see it as an eSport. When players are able to dunk, it can be really good, and players are competing against each other to prevent the other team from dunking. Many players love it, some don't. Again, I personally did. The other thing is that, in my opinion, the really bad deck building system they introduced, and of course this is addressing both games, it's no longer there. So yeah, there are many issues in the original Paragon that needs to be addressed. And again, there always be two camps. Some prefer, certain path that Epic chose, others prefer not. And again, there always going to be a split. But keep in mind that when it comes to Overprime and Predecessor, these are two different paths the developer has chosen. Overprime, some will prefer it because they more address things that were some kind of issue in the game, like the smaller map, some of the features that they actually dropped, like the teleportation and orb prime dunking, which is available in Overprime. So basically, those are new features, but are not new to Paragon, right? Some of them exist before, but they actually ditched by Epic Games with updates. Again, some might prefer them, some might not, but something to keep in mind. This will definitely affect some players preferring playing Overprime over Predecessor, or vice versa. The other thing is monetization practices, and again, people really love getting skins. They want the game to stay competitively fair, of course. It has to be like that, especially if they plan to bring it as an esport game. So the way to please players in many of those games is making sure the game is still rewarding, and you get things to unlock. So you have your dailies, you get the XP for it. You can use this XP if it's going to be, for example, a battle pass. You can unlock new things. Those things are very important to kind of motivate players to grind for them, but still enjoying the game as well. So they get rewarded, but not something that will break the game balance. And of course, how much it costs, and all this stuff. This can be really annoying sometimes. You see skins costing really a lot if you want to unlock them. Sometimes it really takes forever to unlock them in a battle pass. We need to see how those two will approach it. And this is important to implement correctly because, again, it's kind of an incentive for players to, something in the background to know that they upgrade a new skin, they bring it to the battlefield. It's really fun to have it. But again, not something that actually impair the experience, but, something an extra to enjoy just by playing the game. And this is also from the developer side, it's very important because, for example, if they reward players for getting back each day or playing certain amount, or, this is very good to implement well, so players will come back and want to play some more, even at times that they may be deciding not to. It just kind of motivates players to get in back to the game and play. Now, this is very important on the developer side, engaging with the community, and also not just that, but addressing issues in a timely manner. This is, again, for the developer side. For example, when Epic Games decided to take action against AFK, it was really good, well implemented. I knew that, I can report a player, and it's not like you want to fade in the, and what's going to happen. I actually got a message that this was addressed and what happened to that player. So this is very good, and I hope that both developers are aware of that because when it comes to toxicity and AFK players and all this stuff, this needs to be addressed because it just ruins the fun. And some players will just ditch the game if you just feel that it's just not fun for them. Because again, this is type of game that you need to communicate with players. And if players decide just to mute themselves and others and not communicate, you're basically shooting yourself in the leg because you just ruin the experience, because the chances for you to actually win is significantly reduced because you need to communicate specifically with voice. There are ping, by the way, options, but again, nothing replaces good voice communication. So again, speaking about toxicity specifically for that, this is very, very important. There's no place for players to become toxic against each other and ruin other experience. This is not just ruin to the person the toxic player actually just trying to satisfy his ego needs. It's really for everybody. It ruins the entire experience for everybody there. Same goes if you're AFK. And it just leads to a really bad gameplay experience. And considering the fact that you need to spend quite some time in a MOBA game, it's not like a 5 minutes and play session. This is very important to get addressed and make sure those who are actually even thinking about being toxic, they'll know that, well, this is getting like, in quotation, policed, and they shouldn't do it. Basically, the consequences for doing it, it's not worthwhile. Now, the other thing is dealing with connectivity issues. By the way, this is very important, especially when it comes to punishing players who are disconnecting deliberately or not. This needs to be done carefully to assess how we actually players disconnected. Some players we just want to place R4 and, just wait a minute and then go pick the game just to punish other players. There are ways that players can take advantage of it and not in a good way. So, if, for example, when Overprime last playtest started, some players just disconnected, and when they tried to get back to the game, they got punished, I don't know, for like 19 hours. I don't know, it was a long time. And basically, this means you can't play. So, implementing those connectivity issues in a way that it won't punish legit players who really want to play, and for some reason, the game just disconnected, try the best to address it properly. Otherwise, it can lead to a player just stop playing altogether. Nobody wants to get stuck in a place where you really enjoy playing, you disconnect it for a reason that is not up to you, and you can again punish and you can only play the next day. This can be a big issue, and of course they need to make sure those things won't happen. Now, another thing is that very, very important, it might encapsulate many of the things that I mentioned before, but it is the strategic plays. One of the reasons I really love Paragon is because There are lots of those, different group fights and surprises in the lane. Same goes to any other MOBA in that aspect. And the fact that you can actually turn around the tide of the play, even if you are a bit far behind, that led to some really crazy plays. For example, I could just take a character and maybe push straight right lane when I'm already buffed up and can win the game, even though we actually lost so many matches. It was very epic experiencing in Paragon, and I really want to experience it again. Now, I played both Overprime and Predecessor. I found it that it was possible to achieve it in Predecessor as it was with the original Paragon, but basically with Overprime, I just didn't have those moments. Almost never. I think maybe once, but with Predecessor I did. So this is something that I really excited about. I was excited about in Paragon, and I experienced this more in Predecessor. Hopefully some balances can change it in favor of Overprime as well. But as I mentioned before, it felt more brawly in Overprime compared to Predecessor. Again, maybe the size of the balance, the size of the map, many things are taken into account. But for me, it's important. And it's not that important, it's important for a MOBA game in general. That's why people enjoy MOBA games, because you have all those amazing moments. When you watch eSport, and you can see players just getting excited when those type of plays happen, surprises. So even if the game just finishes too fast, and this will lead us to talk about play session, you won't get to experience those fun moments. Now, I know many players will prefer not having like a play session left of around 1 hour on average. Player prefers something around, let's say, the 30-minute mark, something like that. Again, if you see, for example, Wild Rift, for example, for mobile, which is a mobile version of League of Legends, it's like, I think 15 minutes. You just cut the time on by half. But keep in mind, this is going to be a PC game and console game first. So it's important to make sure to nail it right. So you have lots of these ability to change the tide of the battle, pull up strategic moves, ability to really enjoy ranking up and farming. Because if it's going to be too short, you won't have those moments. And it's just going to be like, well, just going to brawl and do group fights and that's it. So a proper PlayStation life is important. Optimize it well, so it won't be like too long, but not be too short. The other thing is console port, or just, development for console, bringing the game to console that plays well. This is very important. Some players just really want to get back their Paragon experience on their PlayStation console. And of course, bringing it also to a new-gen console, PlayStation 5, this is a great opportunity. Especially, by the way, if you are developing with Unreal Engine 5, this would be very interesting to see another Unreal Engine 5 game on the PlayStation 5. But again, implementing it right, first of all, it increases your reach. You can reach, as a developer, you have an option to reach other players who probably only play maybe on console or prefer playing on console. So this can be incentive to players to jump into one of those games, maybe even just because of that. Although it shouldn't be the main reason, but for some players who just owning a gaming console, it is. Some players really just enjoy playing it with a controller, so actually implementing a controller support, which right now on Overprime wasn't implemented, but of course both games will implement controller support, because Paragon was really fun playing on the PlayStation 4 with a controller. So this thing, I hope, will be available and for both games, and you should play properly. Now, the other thing regarding sound, now this is something you might overlook, but keep in mind sound cues are very, very important. Aside from the beautiful music that we love, sound cues are very important because in Overprime, for example, you can really hear the footsteps. So you can really hear if somebody's behind the wall, somebody is flanking, and it's not too late, you have time. So if a players want to surprise, just you need to know that, it can make noise and players can notice that. So you need to notice the sound cues. It's not just the sound, also the visual cues, where you're in the bushes, for example. Those little things are very important. Aside from that, the narration. One of the things that I really like about Paragon is the narration. It's absolutely amazing. And this is actually what I wanted. I want, to have the narration really be impactful in the match. It's really fun when you hear it, when your team is doing well. When you maybe, just alert player that they can upgrade, for example. This is also something important. In the heat of the battle, you don't pay attention. Just get the attention for players by just giving them a certain narration that reminds them that they need to do something. And aside from that, it's also just elevate the entire experience. So implementing good music, sound effects is very important for the game. Now, when it comes to itemization system, it's very important. By the way, still I don't understand, even in playing Overprime, why they didn't implement something that allows for creating build period to entering the game and also automating the system for new players. I complained about it in Paragon as well. Paragon, they complicated it, didn't simplify it at all. They actually thought they're gonna change the system in order to make it easier because before that it was actually much harder for new players to understand, and actually make it, I think, worse. Anyway, nailing the Itemization system is very, very important. For example, in Overprime, you have the option to upgrade items. Basically, if you continue upgrade, it's going to reduce the price of the other upgrade. Basically, it allows you, sorry, for the better item. So basically, it allows you to move towards rather than just saving and then buying an item, which is a good mechanic. And of course, separating what's in-game, what's outside of the game, rather than unlocking cards, for example, like it was in Paragon, where you can, I mean, I like the idea where you can actually set up a build outside and you can just activate it automatically. And by the way, new players that really don't understand or sometimes even don't want to understand, they want to be able to, the game to automatically recommend something and automatically upgrade, especially when you just started playing. This is a good way to, make players, the game more accessible to new players. Then if they want to dive in and do things manually, let them do so. But what Paragon did was a complete mess with the intelligence and all stuff, and you unlock it in and you need to craft cards. It was a terrible, terrible, terrible experience. Also, for example, if I want to share a build with some player, I want to be able to, like in Hearthstone when you share a deck, just, share something so players can just, get a copy paste of some kind of GUID, and it will actually, or link, and will actually automatically import the build for players to use automatically in the game, or they can change it if they like to. Those things are really important, so it invites some kind of a creativity and fun sharing builds in the community. And of course, this is not all, but this is a summary of some of the things that are very important to nail correctly and address issues that were in the previous Paragon with different updates that players just didn't like. I don't know the exact statistics, again, what causes, players to dislike one thing over the other. Of course, there are always two camps, people who like, people who don't like. But if it's really impact the gameplay experience for players, it's not worth it for developers, of course. They need to make changes based on feedback. Some of the things I didn't like either. And again, I play games that I enjoy playing. And even if there's a change in favor of the community that I don't like, I just don't like it. I might, of course, stop playing the game, but of course, as developers, they need to think about the global community, the game that is active and live, people enjoy it. The other thing, by the way, that I didn't mention is eSport, and this is very, very important. So the player, both developers need to focus on making sure that the game succeeds as an eSport. Again, more players will come and enjoy watching it and invite more players into the game, and just creating a really fun, engaging community that evolved around the competitive aspect of the game, and maybe allow players to take part of tournaments as well in game, to make it more fun for casual players to take part of tournaments and maybe win prizes and stuff. This is very, very important to nail correctly, and I'm sure both developers are working hard to make sure that this happens. Aside from that, is also addressing bugs in a timely manner and solve some issues when maybe a player can get stuck by a 3D model that put there in a new map. Little thing annoying in a sense, they need to address it in a timely manner. And that's it. I'm waiting for your comments. What do you think should be done in order to make sure that those Paragon remakes are made the best possible, and what will make one for you better than the other? Let me know in the comment section below. And maybe subscribing, give this one a little like or not. See you on the next one. Cheers.